The 2024 F1 season just started, and I thought it would be fun to do this year. One dessert inspired every single stop on the calendar this year. So we have 24 desserts to get through, and today we're starting with round 1, Bahrain, which is an Arab country. So today we're doing an Arab dessert, Lakemat, which hopefully I'm saying that right. I would compare them to donut holes, a sweet dumpling. I have a recipe printed out, and we're gonna follow it directly. Hopefully this works because I'm really excited. Let's get started. Start with 2 cups of sugar, a cup of water, and the juice of 1 lemon. The recipe for a simple syrup. And set that over a medium heat. Just a stir to combine and let it be. Okay, I think that's boiling now. So it says to cut the heat and then add a tablespoon of orange blossom water, 1, and then a tablespoon of rose water. And then stir this. I'm gonna let that cool to start the oil for our frying. So I'm just using veggie oil. Now to make our dough. I'm gonna be using my KitchenAid just because, you know, sometimes me and doughs don't get along. So we need sugar. You know what, we're just gonna go with it. A cup of flour. We're gonna have to start over. I said too much sugar. Okay, all right, let's start over. Our cup of flour. I think it is important to set the record straight that I have dyslexia, so let's not expect much from me. A tablespoon of cornstarch, a teaspoon of sugar, and then 1.5 teaspoons of instant yeast. Last time I used yeast, I gave myself food poisoning for a week, so let's hope this doesn't happen because it is midterms week. A pinch of salt, half a teaspoon of baking powder, and 1 tablespoon of oil. It says to add up to a 3/4 cup of lukewarm water. Slowly drip the water in. That to me looks like cake batter. It says to cover this for 30 minutes while it rises, obviously because there's yeast. I'll be back in 30 minutes. It's been 30 minutes and our dough has risen. My dog is playing with a toy in the background, but she just got home from the vet, so we're gonna let her. It says to put in either a Ziploc or a piping bag. I obviously own a bunch of piping bags. It smells like pizza dough. Let's get to frying. Teaspoon, it said. Okay, it's splashing, so I'm gonna let those go first. And they're popping up like donut holes. Just going to plop these out. They are all here, and I need to get them in this bowl. I think we're just gonna do it like this. Here are all our babies. Here is our syrup. It says just to pour over and shake. Did I do this right? Because they are like soaking in here. Let's just let this rest for a couple minutes. Time to try. I double checked the recipe to see where I went wrong, but it seems like I didn't do anything wrong. But I've never had this dessert. But like you can see there's still like syrup at the bottom. Did I make the balls too big? I don't know. But let's try. Oh, that's good. I don't know if you can hear the crunch. This is not too sweet. This is great. It tastes like donut holes, but citrusy. I don't know, but I'm into it. I will have to stop myself from eating all of these. I know it's probably not traditional, but a little powdered sugar on top of this. Bahrain, you knew what you were doing. All right, I'll see y'all next week for Saudi Arabia with one of my favorite desserts of all time, which I'll be making for the first time ever. And let's hope for a good race result this weekend. Bye. It's race week in Saudi Arabia, and today we're making one of my favorite desserts all time, baklava. I've never actually made it, so I hope it goes well because last week was kind of a fail. So let's get started. On medium heat, we're gonna start with our syrup. 3/4 cup of sugar, 1 cup of water. Just gonna give this a stir. The sugar has dissolved, so now we're gonna do a cup of honey. When you're using syrup, always grease your tool because look, clean. A tablespoon of orange water. I'm just going to do a capful, stirring this together. A sprinkle of ground clove. I'm gonna let this get to a roaring boil, and then we're gonna let it simmer for 22 minutes. While our syrup is simmering, we are going to create our nut mixture. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, nuts are expensive. So I bought this nut mix at Costco to eat, and then did the psychotic thing and separated every type of nut. Now, traditionally, baklava is either pistachio or walnut, but this recipe calls for both plus hazelnuts. So I'm really excited about that. Now, it says 6 ounces each. I'm not really sure how much 6 ounces is, so I'm just gonna crush these a little bit first. I've been doing this for 10 minutes. This is the best it's gonna get. Put our nut mixture. To this, we are going to add 2 tablespoons of cinnamon, 1, 2, 1/4 of a cup of sugar, a large pinch of cloves. And we're just gonna mix this up and set it aside. Next, we're gonna melt 2 sticks of butter, unsalted. I'm just gonna turn off the heat. It's been 25 minutes, and now we're gonna put a bowl of lemon juice, mix it up, and then just let it. I have a casserole dish. I don't know if this is gonna work. I don't have a metal one. This is what we have. So it says to butter really well. I worry because casserole dishes don't really conduct heat very well. So if it's underbaked, that's gonna be on me. I told myself to buy a disposable aluminum dish, and I just forgot. So we're using my pretty casserole dish. Here is our phyllo dough. We're going to gently take these out. I thawed these overnight. Just lay your dough down, then you can fold it in half like that. Butter well, and then repeat this process till you use like a third of the phyllo dough. We have about 6 rows of phyllo dough, and we're just gonna use half of this mixture into every single corner here. That way every single bite has nuts on it. And then we're gonna continue, and I'll be back after 5 more. We have 5 more layers here, and I'm just gonna trim like the overhead. The first time I tried this dessert was at Cultures Around the World sort of event, and I fell in love. And then when I was a sophomore going into junior year of high school, so that is like 6 years now, I did this 6-week intensive like language course at my local university, and I chose Edinburgh. It was during the summer, so it was Eid. And after Eid had finished, our professor had brought in her homemade baklava recipe, and my life was changed again. I only remember like one line she taught us. There was Russian, Portuguese, or Arabic you could learn, and if you were dropped into one of the countries that speak those languages, you could get by and you could speak the language enough. You know, they taught us all the touristy words, numbers, the ABCs, all of it. I don't remember much. I can barely maybe introduce myself, but I love the language so much, so one day I hope to relearn. That kind of explains why this is one of my favorite desserts. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to butter when we're doing the nut mixture, but we're just gonna do it. The rest of our nuts, our final round of dough. Here we are. So now we got to cut it, score it, if you will. Last time I used this knife was actually Thanksgiving, and I cut myself pretty badly. Ironically, I was cutting the turkey as a vegetarian, you know, as one does. We're cutting all the way through or across, and then it says diagonal. We have cut our diamonds, and now I'm just going to do one more layer of butter. This is going to go into the oven for 45 minutes at 350. The baklava is out. It's still hot. We're going to pour the cold syrup on top. Ooh, sizzly. So now it looks like this, and now I have to let it cool for a couple hours before we even try some. It's been about 4 hours, and it's still like warm on the bottom from the syrup. We are going to try some. Oh my god, this is dangerous. I probably should have never learned how to make this. There's a reason why this is like one of my favorite desserts of all time. There is nothing that can explain the flavor. It is a little savory, a little salty with sweet, and it has the nuts for crunchy texture. Oh my god, it's over. This is delicious. Give it a try, and let's hope for a very good race this weekend. I'll see you in a couple weeks for the Australian Grand Prix with something I've never made before again. Bye. It's race weekend this week in Australia, so let's make a dessert. My apron is dyed red, literally, because I was making a Ferrari cake, so that's food color. I'm not gonna lie, this week's dessert absolutely terrifies me. I've never made anything like this, but we're going to be attempting to make pavlova, which is an Australian dessert. So starting with our eggs, we're gonna need 6 egg whites. I saw that Oscar Piastri's grandma brought the whole McLarentine Lamingtons, an Australian dessert, and I was like, oh my gosh, that looks like something I would love to make, but I had already bought all the ingredients for this, so I was like, okay, if I have all the ingredients to make that, I will switch the recipe. I didn't. So we're sticking to this. Now, the reason why I'm scared about this is because I am not a big fan of like meringues and macarons. So this is basically egg white dessert. I will save the yolks to make some sort of omelet later. And now we are going to add egg whites to bowl. Here is our stand mixer. We're going to start on 2, move up to 4 for about 12 minutes until we get stiff peaks. While that is going, the recipe calls for caster sugar. For the life of me, I was trying to figure out what caster sugar is. Is it just granulated sugar or is it powdered sugar? And it turns out it is a mix between both. So we have to make our own caster sugar. We're going to throw sugar in a blender. Definitely like finer. It feels like sweet and low texture. To this, we're gonna add 1 3/4 cup of our caster sugar. It says 1 cornstarch heat. Don't know what that is because it doesn't say 1 cup. It doesn't say 1 tablespoon. It says 1 cornstarch heat. So we're gonna do 1 cup. And if this is where I mess up, this is where I mess up, and we just gotta take that in stride. But obviously, you need something to like stabilize the meringue. Oh, I probably shouldn't have done it all at once. It's okay. I can fix this. that way. It doesn't go everywhere. It's been 12 minutes, nice and silky. Looks like if you'd make Swiss meringue buttercream. This we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of vanilla and a teaspoon of vinegar. I got a whiff of the vinegar. Whip this up on a speed of 4 for about a minute. Alright, and we are done with our mixer for now, so we'll let little milkshake here cool off. We have very stiff peaks. Gotta line our baking sheet. So, as we are doing this, the Australian GP has like special place in my heart because Australia has a special place in my heart. I was supposed to go to school in Australia for college. I was going to get a wildlife conservation degree. Well, that kind of fell apart. So I was supposed to leave last year. I had my visa. I had my acceptance. I was supposed to go to the University of Queensland for a year and then transfer to the University of Sydney. I had my visa ready, my dorm room picked out, deposit, and then they hit me literally the week I'm supposed to hop on a plane and travel 17 hours. The university said, oh, you know how we told you we took like American financial aid? We don't. So now you're gonna have to pay a lot more money than you already paid. And I had already shelled out a lot of money. So in the end, I had to drop out a week before school started, give up on my whole dream of working with animals. There is no animal conservation degree in the States. So I love Australia. Maybe one day I will live there for a year after I graduate. So this is gonna go in the oven. It says for about an hour to an hour 30. It says 150 degrees Celsius. Our pavlova is done baking. It is cooling with the oven door cracked open. That's what it said to do. And now in a cold bowl, I'm gonna put my heavy whipping cream and then plop this back into the freezer for 10 to 15 minutes. While that is chilling in the freezer, it's time to prep our fruit. So I'm just gonna put some blueberries aside that I've already washed. I'm gonna do strawberries and kiwis, and I'm just gonna order them into a bowl. These frozen berries go. And last but not least, our kiwis. We are gonna just shave our kiwi. Our fruit is prepped. We're just gonna whisk this until a whipped cream forms. Alright, we have stiff peaks. Now we're gonna add a third cup of our castor sugar and a teaspoon of vanilla, and then whip until incorporated. And a whipped cream has formed. Here is our pavlova. The only thing I have big enough to fit it is this wooden plate. I'm not going to use all our whipped cream. Let's decorate. From watching so far all the free practices, I think what Williams did to Argent is not fair. I think if you did something, you should take responsibility for it. And to kick him out of his own car, he didn't put the car on the wall. Here is our decorated pavlova. Now let's cut her open and try her. I don't even know how you're supposed to cut one of these. Is it supposed to break like that? Oh, we're supposed to top with icing sugar. It's actually pretty good. It tastes like something I've had before, but I can't pin it down. That was this week's dessert for the Australia GP. Let's hope for a good race weekend. Specifically, I'm hoping for some sort of McLaren podium. Obviously, Oscar. And I will see you in a couple of weeks for the Japan GP with one of my favorite types of desserts. Bye!
It's race week this time in Japan, so let's make a dessert. Do you like my apron? I made it. It is F1 inspired. We are going to be making a matcha Swiss roll cake. One of my favorite things in the world is matcha. I don't drink coffee, but I love a good matcha. And we're going to start by separating 4 eggs. It is Yuki's week. I'm so excited. I'm hoping for Yuki points, yoints, if you will. Australia was insane. I'm wearing the Oscar Piastri Australia shirt for our egg yolks in here. And we're just going to break the yolks. To this, we're going to add 1/4 of a cup of sugar. Once those are both combined, move that one aside. And we're going to whip our egg white. While our egg whites are beating, we're going to sift our dry ingredients. 3/4 cups of cake flour. The Australia's race was so exciting. I mean, whoever took out Sign's appendix, you know, they took the time to put that dog in him. Okay, they said he's coming back and he's coming back for a fight. And we gotta respect it. We're gonna do 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. And this is where it gets fun, matcha. You can use what matcha you like. The brand I have on hand is Chamberlain Coffee. This is just what I've hyper fixated on. This is almost empty, so I'm gonna use vanilla too. We're gonna need 2 tablespoons of matcha. Can we talk about William? They branded themselves as the underdog team, and I understand in the way of business why they're doing certain things the way they're doing them, but they have set themselves up. Again, this weekend, they gave Logan the broken chassis. I don't know why you would re-sign Logan if you don't believe in him. We're gonna sit this 3 more times. It just makes no sense, and I hate to say it, but as an American, from an American standpoint, when Logan was signed, he brought new sponsors. American sponsors decided to invest, including Michelob Ultra, Gulf Oil, and Steffen. Those American brands, they're not going to want to continue to invest in Williams if Logan is not on their team. I understand this is a business business. But I would argue F1, obviously it's about the racing, but the whole point of the sport is to sell. You follow Ferrari because you want a Ferrari, like that sort of thing. I can't tell you the amount of things I've bought because they sponsor a team. So by doing this, one, obviously they destroyed his confidence. Obviously it's not Alex or Logan's fault. I would consider Williams like my number 3 team, and you can see from his signing, even brands like Abercrombie, which is where I get most of my McLaren merch, they've had this long-standing deal with McLaren, but they also now are doing Williams merch, and I would put that behind that they probably saw that Logan Sargent and American is on Williams, and Abercrombie is like the brand teenagers buy from. Our flour, baking soda, and matcha has been incorporated, so we're going to set this aside. Our eggs are now pretty foamy. We're going to take the other half of our sugar, which is 1/4 of a cup, and put it in here. We're going to whisk that into their incorporated. We're going to take about 1/3 of our egg white mixture and put it into the egg yolk, and then beat this again until this is incorporated. Now I'm going to just pour our egg yolk mixture into our egg whites, and we're just going to fold these in. I was looking at the calendar this weekend and I was like, am I going crazy, or was Sudoku not this early last year? And I was like, I'm going crazy because I swear it was after summer break last year and I don't remember seeing cherry blossoms. I was gaslighting myself. This is actually really therapeutic. Now we're going to take our dry ingredients and fold these in too, just until it is incorporated. Who do we think? Are we going to see a return to Oscar on the podium? I think so. I think it's a possibility. Now we are going to take 2 tablespoons of warm milk and fold that in. Maybe this is what Dr. Seuss meant when he wrote green eggs and ham. Maybe he just meant a matcha Swiss roll. Now we're going to take a baking sheet and we're going to line her with parchment paper. I am drinking a Red Bull. You know, I may be a McLaren and Ferrari girly through and through. Every other flavor of Red Bull is absolutely disgusting, and I think I've had literally all the flavors. But this one, strawberry apricot, is good. The thing I find with Red Bulls is they have this like aftertaste that sits on your tongue, and this one doesn't. Created kind of like a border. We're just gonna put our batter in here. Spread her out using an offset spatula. Did you see that? Mercedes also brought upgrades and they said it's not gonna do much. It's like not funny, but it is. Now we're just gonna tap her against the counter to get air bubbles out. This is gonna bake in the oven from 9 to 12 minutes, just until it is clean in the center and it springs back. Our cake is out of the oven. We're gonna take another piece of parchment, place her on top, another clean baking sheet, flip her right on over. This one up, peel back this one. Another layer of parchment on top, another baking sheet, and flip again. Put on the counter till this is going to be our end. Now we're going to roll her. We're going to take a kitchen towel and roll her in the kitchen towel. And now this baby is going to rest. Our cake has cooled, so now we're going to make the whipped cream with a 3/4 cup of heavy cream, 1.5 tablespoons of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of matcha powder. Mix this. I am going to cut up some strawberries with my roll. Our whipped cream has formed. Now I'm going to just lay my strawberries down. Now let's re-roll our roll. We're going to wrap her one more time. It's going to go sit in the fridge for 2 hours until it's nice and cooled, and then we'll come back and try it. I'm just going to trim off the side using the biggest knife I can possibly find. And I'm just going to top with a little powdered sugar. I'm currently watching FP3. There is our beautiful Swiss roll. Let's give her a try. Wow, these desserts just keep getting better and better. I knew this would be good, and the strawberries just add a tinge of freshness. Let's hope for a good race this weekend. Based off of practices, someone's going to go off track and someone is going to retire. That's all I know for sure. I'll see you guys in 2 weeks for China for one of my favorite Chinese desserts. Bye! It's race week, this time in China for the first time in 5 years. So let's make one of my favorite Chinese desserts, red bean sesame balls. We're going to start with 1/2 cup of glutamate rice flour into a bowl. This has like the texture of cornstarch. Add in a 1/3 cup of granulated sugar and a 1/4 cup of boiling water. This with a spatula. Let this sit for 5 minutes. 1 more cup of our flour and 1/4 cup plus 1 tablespoon of room temp water. Mix this up. I am nervous for this weekend. It is a sprint weekend and most of the drivers haven't driven there, and the ones that have, it's been 5 years. Something's gonna happen, and I hope it's not Williams chassis again because, well, they don't have one. Our dough has formed. Now I'm just gonna put a wet paper towel on top of this so it doesn't dry out. Cover this with some saran wrap, and we're gonna let her rest for 30 minutes. While our dough is resting, we are just going to rehydrate our sesame seeds. So I'm doing 1/2 cup. Put her on a plate, put her aside so they can dry. Now let's form our red bean balls that are going to go inside. Now we need to roll about 40-gram balls. I don't have a scale, but 1 tablespoon is about 70 grams. So I'm thinking just a little bit bigger. I want to talk about Williams again while we do this. It's looking like Logan will not be kept for next season, which is fine and dandy. But if I was Williams and they're looking at this too much as a mechanic point of view, I know you need to build the best car. But if I was Williams, and if anyone from Williams is watching this, you're not. But if you are, you have Logan, the only American on the grid. What you need to be doing is marketing yourself as the American team. There's now 3 races in America. Start marketing yourself towards American brands. Americans love an underdog story. How many British teams are on the grid? You know, I can think of at least 3 or British drivers on the grid. Again, I can think of at least 4. That's what's going to make you stand out. And then that way you can start getting American sponsors. Let me explain this. The Dallas Cowboys, the football team. I'm from Texas. I get to say this. The team sucks, but it's America's team. Ask anyone. Their cheerleaders are iconic. The white, blue, and silver is iconic. The stadium is iconic. That is America's team. And every year, just like Ferrari fans, because I'm a Ferrari fan too, they say, oh, this year's our year. We'll make it to the playoffs. We'll make it to the AFC, NFC. I'm not sure which one they're part of, but they never do, and they probably never will. Doesn't mean that's not America's team. Williams, you need to brand yourself America's team. Tap into the what the fuck is a kilometer meme. Use Logan, even if it's just for this season, to get sponsors. Do you guys have no energy drink sponsor? We have Red Bull on the grid. We have Monster on the grid. Their Celsius is now sponsoring Ferrari. If you can tap into it correctly, I would guarantee Alani Nutrition would sponsor. They love a good sponsorship, and they are as American as it gets. I'm pretty sure the founder's husband is conspiracy theorist Republican, but you know who's from Florida where the conspiracy theorists are? Logan. There's so much untapped potential in the American market, because when you think of racing in the States, you think of NASCAR. There's so many people who would watch F1 if they saw more American representation, at least in the sponsors. That's all I'm saying. He started a podcast. You know what's so American? Podcast. There's literally a saying in the States of men with microphones. Start getting Albon and Sargent on American podcasts. Send Logan on Travis Kelce's New Height podcast. 2 American NFL players. You're going to get the Swifties, the football players, because in order to build a good car, you need money. And you know who has money? The American. And then maybe in 5 years, and you don't have to hold on to Logan this long, you will have the money to win a championship again. But you need those sponsors. And just by signing him in 1 year, you got 3 great sponsors. So I have about 12 red bean balls here. I'm going to cover them, let them rest, and then we'll come back when our dough is ready. It's been a couple hours. Take the dough, and we're gonna split her into 8 pieces. So I don't have a bench scraper, so we're just gonna use this cake comb. Roll these into balls. We're gonna flatten them about 3 inches in diameter, and then take one of our little red bean pockets and then roll again. I think after hearing that Fernando signed again to Aston Martin, that really, I think Sainz is going to go to Red Bull. All of our little balls are done. They look like little bows. And now we have our sesame seeds. We're just going to roll in the seeds. Roll them again. Make sure the seeds stick. So we're going to fry them 4 at a time at 300. So they have tripled in size. We turned up the heat, and they're just going to fry for 5 more minutes just to get golden brown. Also, the grass is on fire. How is that possible? Now let's go ahead and take our babies out of the oil, and then I have a line cooling rack right here. It's been about 20 minutes. All of them have cooled, so let's try it. It's really good. It's just really gelatiny, like chewy, so it kind of hurts to get through it. If I would have known they were going to puff up this much, I would have rolled out the dough more and added more red bean, because it feels like there's not enough red bean. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd rate these about a 7. All right, I'll see you in a couple weeks for the Miami GP with another dessert. Bye. It's race week this week in Miami, so let's make a quintessential American dessert, cinnamon rolls. I do need to give a disclaimer. I've never made cinnamon rolls in my life. Brett and I don't really get along. Well, I love to eat it, but I don't know how to bake it. So this is going to be a learning curve. We're going to need 3.5 cups of flour. Cinnamon rolls are my mom's favorite dessert, so she's going to be really excited about this. A teaspoon of salt, and then a packet of instant dry yeast. We're going to just mix this with the paddle attachment just loosely. That should be good. Setting this aside, we're going to add 1 cup of whole milk, half a cup of granulated sugar, and 1/4 of a cup of butter. We're going to put this in the microwave for 1 minute until it's warm. Mix this baby up. Our butter should be kind of melted. We have the dough hook attached here. Slowly begin to pour this in so it begins to combine. To this, we're just going to add 1 egg. We're just gonna let this mix for a couple minutes. To this, we're going to add 3 tablespoons of flour. Now we are just going to cover this for our first proofing for 20 minutes. Guys, I've really been enjoying listening to Ruth. Her last name starts with a B, the former Alfa Romeo engineer on F1 TV commentary. It's so nice to have a woman, and it's so nice to have someone who knows so much because she was a race strategist. So I'm looking forward to hearing her more as the season goes on. While our dough is proofing, we are going to make our filling. Half a cup of packed brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of cornstarch, and a tablespoon of cinnamon. Just gonna give this a quick. Our dough has risen, so we're gonna flour the counter that I've actually laid plastic wrap on so I don't make that big of a mess. Now we can plot our dough. Going to flour my rolling pin. I just realized what that looked like. Okay, and we're gonna roll her out to about 12 by 19. My dough is as big as I can get it. It's about half a centimeter thick. And now I'm just going to butter it using a 1/4 of unsalted butter. So half a stick. Now that it's spread out, we can add our topping, our cinnamon mixture. Did you guys see that Adrian Newey left Red Bull? I think it's most logical he's gonna move Ferrari. That wasn't a shock. That's been a rumor for a while. The rumor of the week, though, is that Williams is going to drop Logan in for Kimi Antonelli. I will say I think that is a really dumb idea because Williams is trying to move away from being Mercedes feeder team, but by doing that they're just going to reinforce those rumors. And Williams, your problem isn't Logan, it's your car not having money for a good car. It's not like Albon is putting it in top 10 every week. We are going to roll her slowly. Now we're just going to take normal dental floss, and I've seen people do this for years, so I'm really excited. We're going to cut 9 as even as I can strips using our floss. Ooh, that's not even at all. That was on an edge. F1 Academy is there this weekend, and I really like to see that. I think Williams needs to leave Kimi alone. If they want him so bad, sign him next year. The kid needs time to grow. Going from an F2 car to an F1 car is a lot. We heard Behrman talk about it, and Kimi skipped F3. He hasn't even had a full season in F2. Let him rest. I think it's because Toto wants the next Max Verstappen, but you're not going to get one if you don't let them grow. I don't know what this is. We don't know her. I have a grease baking sheet here, and we're just going to put our babies in here. They're not very even, but oh well. We're going to take some foil, cover our baby. So the oven has been at 200 degrees Fahrenheit since we started this whole process. I'm going to turn the oven off completely, and these are going to go in there for 30 minutes so they can proof with the heat. But the oven is off. It's just been at 200 for the past 45 minutes. Our cinnamon rolls have risen, so we're going to take this off, and I realized I went wrong somewhere. So I'm actually going to transfer them to a smaller pan. The oven is heating up to 350, so these are going to go in for 26 to 30 minutes uncovered. While those are cooking, let's make our cream cheese frost. I have a 1/4 of a cup of cream cheese right here, 1/4 of a cup of unsalted butter, thick pinch of salt, and then 2 teaspoons of vanilla bean paste. Mix this up. To this, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of whole milk, and slowly we're going to add 1.5 cups of powdered sugar. We're going to just set this aside. Our rolls have cooled for about 20 minutes, so now let's add our frosting on top. These are now going to rest for another 20 minutes. Our babies have cooled, so now let's try. Wow. I can't believe I made this. I've always been so intimidated. This is so good. This is a 10 out of 10. This is amazing. So for our final predictions, Miami is just a really boring circuit to me. Hopefully it's not Logan's last race. Max will probably win, but I'm thinking Leclerc and Norris on the podium. See you in a couple of weeks in Imola for one of my favorite Italian desserts. As I do the series, I realize I really like dessert because everything is my favorite. I'll see you then. Bye. It's race week, this time in Imola. So let's make a dessert. Today we are making, I think, one of the most iconic Italian desserts, tiramisu. If my research was correct, was created at a brothel. So that's fun. We're going to start with making our cream. 3/4 cup of heavy cream into the bowl, and 2 tablespoons of white granulated sugar. Going to mix this till stiff peaks form. Our peaks are stiff, so this bowl is going to go into the fridge while we make our next mixture. In a new clean bowl, I have 4 egg yolks, 1/4 of a cup of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Another clean whisk, and we're just going to incorporate this till the sugar basically dissolves. Now I have a pound, 8 ounces of mascarpone cheese, mascarpone, however you say it, and we're going to do spoonful by spoonful, adding it into the bowl and letting it mix. Our pound is all well incorporated. Now we're going to take our whipped cream that's been chilling in the fridge and kind of fold it in. Now I'm going to be honest, I haven't been feeling great this week. I finished my school semester on Monday, and I think everything just kind of cultivated. I felt the burnout. My anxiety is at an all-time high, and the races are now in Europe. Technically not, because Canada is in a couple weeks. But as an insomniac, now that means I am on the opposite side, so I can go to sleep really late, but waking up at 6 a.m. does not work. Now we need our espresso drink. This is espresso I brewed. I was trying to see if I could buy some. Apparently I can't. So I brewed this, and it's just this powder I've had forever. So we're gonna use about 2 cups. Hopefully that's enough. Let's start our assembly line. This is the dish I have. And here are our lady fingers. Just going to do 1 layer of these. They're kind of hard. Is that normal? I don't know. These are authentic Italy lady fingers. I'm gonna need Ollie Behrman to have a full-term seat next season, because watching his dad when he is in the car is the highlight of my weekend. Also, I feel so bad for Oscar. Given a penalty, I mean, I could have had another McLaren podium. Norris's win in Miami. Oh, I was screaming. I was so excited. I was actually supposed to be at that race, but some family issues came up, so I had to skip out. It was also prep to finals week, so would have that been my best decision in the world? Probably not, but I don't make great decisions all the time. Now, I know you can use brandy or Kahlua or rum. This recipe didn't call for it, and I also couldn't find brandy at the liquor store. I am 21, but I don't know. We're gonna take some of this mixture. I don't want to save some. As I am baking this, Max is on that 24-hour sim race, which if he shows up and wins tomorrow, we just gotta let him have it. That is insane. First layer. I will say, doing this is kind of calming my anxiety. I don't know which way is which way anymore. Okay, I figured it out. This is reminding me of Friends when Rachel makes that trifle. It's half trifle, half shepherd's pie. I've always wanted to recreate that, but not obviously with the meat and stuff. If this is how easy it is to make tiramisu, again, I probably shouldn't have learned how to do this, because this is one of my favorite Italian desserts. Our next layer of cream, I'm just gonna do this much. I'm just gonna pipe on our final layer to make it nice and pretty. So now I'm just going to mix some espresso powder and cocoa powder together so I can top our dessert. And I'm going to kind of give her a good dusting. I'm going to make a mess on my counter, but that is okay. I'm going to plop her in the fridge uncovered for at least an hour, and then we're going to come back and try her together. So let's cut into our tiramisu. It's really good. I would say an 8 out of 10. So quickly, race predictions. I hope for a McLaren podium. So definitely Norris. Probably Max is going to win. And hopefully maybe Leclerc. All right, I'll see you next week for the Monaco GP. Bye. It's race week, this time in Monaco, so let's make a dessert. Today we're making French macaron. I know what you're thinking. Monaco is not French, and that can be offensive. I get it, but when I was doing research for this series, I can't find if Monaco has a national dessert or not, but they speak French, they border French. This is the closest thing I can find. Never made macarons in my life. They terrify me because they are so easy to mess up. So hopefully this goes really well today. We're sifting 70 grams of almond flour. I had to buy a food scale for this, and I took 30 minutes to weigh my ingredients. I have watched way too many tutorials on this because I will not fail. Let's hope not. Next, we have 63 grams of powdered sugar, and we're going to sift this into our almond flour. Just going to give these a quick mix to incorporate them, and then we're going to set them aside. Now we have 55 grams of aged egg whites, and aged basically means I cracked them yesterday and let them sit in the fridge. We're going to whisk this until bubbles start to form on the surface. So bubbles have formed. We're going to put in a pinch of cream of tartar, and then we're going to continue mixing until soft peaks form. Soft peaks has formed, so now we're going to add 55 grams of white sugar. We're going to mix for 30 more seconds on medium speed, then we're going to bump it up to high speed to get glossy peaks. It's been about 5 minutes. So our eggs have become this like glossy meringue. Now we're going to fold in our powdered sugar and almond flour mixture. I'm going to do this in thirds, and we're going to go around the bowl twice and pull, around the bowl twice and pull until it is incorporated. Then we'll add the next third and then the next third. Charles Leclerc is on pole, so I really need a Monaco win for him. I don't care who has to be put in the wall. Well, just don't mess with my McBabies, but whoever needs to be sacrificed, sacrifice them to get Charles that win. I have a Wilton 2A tip on here. I have a cookie sheet lined with one of these like silicone mats, and we're just going to pipe perpendicular. We're going to bang them against the counter pretty aggressively to get air bubbles out. I don't have a toothpick, but I have its new floss stick, and we're just going to get the air bubbles out. Our macs are going to rest for 30 minutes so a skin can form, and then we'll be back to bake them. It's been 30 minutes. Our macs have developed a thin skin, so they're now matte. They're going to go in the oven for 18 minutes, and at 9 minutes, we're going to rotate them. But the side we're rotating is going to get a little like shield cover with foil. The last tray of macs are in the oven, so let's work on our buttercream. I have half a cup of unsalted butter. We're making American buttercream. Many of you know I hate American buttercream, but that's what the recipe calls for. And we're going to beat for a minute just for the butter to kind of soften. Now we have 125 grams or 1 cup of powdered sugar. We're going to incorporate this in thirds. We're going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract into this, about 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Finally, 2 teaspoons of heavy cream. And we are going to mix this on medium for a couple minutes. We're going to put our buttercream in another piping bag. It's been about 20 minutes. Our macs have cooled. You can see this is like the 10th I made. So let's plop them off. Oh my god, they didn't crack. This is amazing. Yeah, I was really worried. I was like, oh, I messed this up. I'm gonna ice the center of this one and wedge together. All of them are sandwiched together, so let's give them a try. I know they're supposed to sit overnight to develop better flavors. I don't have time for that. Overall, it's a macaron. It tastes like one you would buy. I'd give this a 7 out of 10. I will say you cannot tell me anything now. I'm unstoppable. The fact that I did this well on my first try, it's over. It's over for all of you. So my predictions for the race, I need a Charles Leclerc win. I also need Oscar on that podium. I need a Leclerc family podium. Simple as that. All right, I'll see you in a couple weeks for the Canadian GP. Bye. It's race week, this time in Canada, so let's make a dessert. We are making Nanino bars. I'm really excited about these. They kind of remind me of Millionaire bars. We're going to take half a cup of butter. This is salted butter, actually. 1/4 of a cup of granulated sugar and 1/4 of a cup of cocoa powder that we are going to sift. Now we're going to take this mixture over to a double boiler, mix until the butter is melted. I really want to know why we're mixing this together over a double boiler. Why couldn't I just melt the butter in the microwave? Now we're going to crack in 1 egg and then stir for 2 to 3 minutes until it is incorporated. Okay, to this we're going to add 1 cup of shredded coconut, half a cup of crushed almonds, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 2 cups of graham cracker crumbs. We're going to stir this together. This is our first layer, and we're going to place it in the bottom of a baking dish that I have lined completely with parchment. I'm going to place this in the freezer while we work on our next layer. For our middle layer, we're going to take a half of a cup of salted butter and cream her till she's smooth. To this, we're going to add 3 tablespoons of heavy cream, 2 tablespoons of vanilla jello, and 2 cups of powdered sugar. And here is our middle layer. We're going to spread our second layer on top. This is going to go back in the freezer while we work on our last layer. I have 4 ounces of milk chocolate here, and we're going to add 2 tablespoons of that butter. We're just going to melt this in 20-second intervals in the microwave till it's fully done. Let's put our melted chocolate. This is going to rest in the freezer for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to come cut it. It is time to cut using the Halloween Michael Myers knife. Oh wow, it's really good, but it's really sweet. The middle layer specifically is super sweet. I don't know if I could have maybe more than one of these. It might be too sweet. Canadians, I know you love your sweet things. Maple syrup, I know I love maple syrup. This is just so sweet. I'm gonna have to give it a 5.5 out of 10. But if you really love sugar, this is for you. I think silly season has officially begun. Like, we've been getting glimpses of it, but this week is silly season, okay? Ocon is out. Do I think Alpine was right in doing that? I'm not sure because they didn't defend him when he was getting online hate, but we did see the French war again. I'm so excited excited that Yuki resigned. He's officially resigned. Love Yuki. Predictions though, I think what I personally want to see, it's probably not going to happen, but I just want to see it for my own entertainment, is I need to see Russell on the podium, number one, because I just want them to play God Save the King and watch him cry. And I also need someone to get poured with maple syrup. I know that's not a tradition, but I would love to see it. That's it. I'll see you in a couple of weeks for the Spain Grand Prix. Bye. It's race week, this time in Spain. So let's make a dessert inspired by this week's race. We are making flan. Spanish flan, not Mexican flan. There is a difference. I will explain it. We are going to start with making our caramel over in like a saucepan. We're going to do 1 cup of white granulated sugar, and it says just to leave this alone, let this caramelize on its own. I've seen people use like the lecheria dulce de leche can instead of making caramel their own, but since we're doing it the Spain way, not the Mexican way, I'm going to leave this alone for 10 minutes. In Miss Milkshake here, we're going to beat 4 eggs. Whole eggs. That made a floppy sound, along with half a cup of granulated sugar. We're gonna beat this till it's creamy. I'm sweating. I'm not gonna lie, I burnt the caramel. We're on try 2 over there. We're gonna add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And what makes this different than Mexican flan is because we are not using gelatin. And I do not like gelatin. I'm technically allergic to it because I'm allergic to pork. 2 cups of whole milk. And we're gonna whip this till it's smooth and our custard is set. Now I'm gonna grease my ramekin pie dish. It doesn't say to do this, but I really don't know how it's supposed to like flip over properly if you don't. Okay, we are going to be very careful here. Our caramel in here. Now let's pour the custard on top. Now in an aluminum tin, because I didn't have a baking dish big enough, I'm gonna put this here. Taking hot water I've had boiling this whole time, we're gonna make a little water bath. This is going to go into the oven for 40 to 60 minutes at 300 degrees until the custard becomes jiggly.
This is the first caramel I made. How do I get it off my counter? It took 30 minutes and I stained it kind of.
Our flan took 2 hours to bake. It would not settle, so it's been resting in the fridge for a while. And I'm just going to go around here. Give it an old lip of the wrist. Well, oops. Let's try to salvage this. It's a mess. It's a mess. I made a mess. I'm making a mess. Okay, that'll have to do. It is so thin. I'm gonna have to give that a 2 out of 3. It is not good. It tastes like sugar egg. I did get this recipe off of an authentic Spanish blog. Maybe I should have gone with the recipe on like allrecipes.com that use condensed milk, evaporated milk, and whole milk. Anyways, let's do some predictions. So this has been another silly week, you know, with McLaren McCooking the unit, it catching on fire, with rumors that Carlos is probably going to go to Williams, which that's a choice, and then Lewis finally making it back on podium after rumors of sabotage. Here are my predictions quickly. Norris is on pole. I really want him to win. But if he doesn't win, okay, what I would want to be my second option is for Lewis to win as a big FU to Mercedes. Is it probable? Kind of, but you know, we'll find out in that first corner. All right, I'll see you guys next week for the Austria Grand Prix. Bye.
It's race week, this time in Austria, so let's make a dessert. Real quickly, my microphone was dead. I didn't realize it this whole time. It comes back in at the end, so we're just gonna have to voice over this whole beginning process. I really apologize, but I just don't have time to refilm this dessert, so bear with me. We are making Salzburger Knuckle, which is kind of like a souffle. I got this recipe from a famous hotel in Austria. Starting out, we're gonna take 2.5 tablespoons of butter and put them into our baking dish. This is gonna go into the oven at 425. My oven has already been preheating, and we're just gonna want the butter to melt in this dish. Now to our electric mixer, we're gonna add 4 egg whites and mix this till stiff peaks form. And once our peaks are stiff, we're gonna add 4 tablespoons of white sugar and whisk this again until it's incorporated. Then we're gonna take the whisk and switch it out for a paddle and reserve 3 tablespoons of this egg white mixture. Then to this, we're gonna add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract and 3 egg yolks. Mix this until it is well incorporated, and then we're gonna add in back the remainder 3 tablespoons of yolk reserved. I don't know why. And then finally, we're gonna sift in 2.5 tablespoons of flour. Give this one good final mix. Taking our pan out of the oven, our butter is now melted, and to this we're going to add 3 tablespoons of jam, whatever you have in your fridge. I'm using strawberry, and on top of this I'm going to scoop the batter. It's supposed to be 3 peaks, but it kind of just created this puddle, you know. This is going to go into the oven at 425 for 10 minutes until it is golden brown.
But we're going to take about 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar and top it off. It doesn't say if I need to wait for it to cool, so we're just going to try it. It kind of tastes like a crepe. It kind of tastes like a pancake. Kind of tastes like egg. Overall, it's a really good dessert. I'm gonna have to give it a 5.5 out of 10. Real quickly, let's talk predictions. We saw that Stroll re-signed with Aston Martin. None of us were surprised. They said they were fixing the curbs and stuff so track limits wouldn't happen as much. They put gravel in. Boy, we've been seeing track limits. So I'm really interested to see that because last year was track limit clownery. Norris is sick. Boy needs some antibiotics, something. He is P2. I don't know if he will win. One, that he is sick, and two, that the sprint McLaren was getting on Verstappen, but in quali he did seem a lot faster. So I'm just gonna go P1 Max, Red Bull Ring, P2 Norris, and P3 let's say Russell. Just how it is in order. All right, I'll see you next week for the British Grand Prix. Bye. It's race week, this time in the UK, which I have right here. So let's make a traditional British dessert. Today we are making the classic Victoria sponge sandwich cake. I am going to claim this as one of my home races because my mother's side of the family is from the UK. Specifically, my grandma is from Chatham, Kent, England. Born and raised there and somehow ended up in Texas. Anyways, to start, 200 grams of castor sugar, aka white sugar, 200 grams of self-rising flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder. I'm gonna give this a soft little mix. To this, we're gonna add 2 tablespoons of milk, 4 eggs that I already beat, and 200 grams of softened butter. We're making more of like a sweet bread than like a cake. I can already tell the extreme differences because in our vanilla cakes here in the States, we'd add like vanilla extract, salt, not that much butter. I have 3 6-inch tins here that I've already pre-buttered. I'm gonna use a cookie scoop to get this nice and even. Now, good news this week, Ollie Behrman was signed to Haas. I'm just so glad he has a seat on the 2025 grid. It really shows you that a weekend in F1 racing is doing so much more for people's careers than the F2 championships. Now, I do hope that with Gunther gone, that Haas does not repeat their treatment of rookie drivers. You know, you saw it with Mick Schumacher, Nick De Vries. I hope this is good for him. I am going to need a camera on his father 24/7 every single race because that man is my favorite meme now. These 3 are going to go into the oven for 20 minutes at 375 degrees. I did have to calculate that. That is 190 degrees Celsius. Now, while those are baking, we are going to make our icing. So 100 grams, give or take, of softened unsalted butter. We're going to whisk this till it is smooth and creamy. And then to this, we're going to slowly add 140 grams of powdered sugar and mix until it's incorporated. Now I'm going to add just a splash of vanilla extract and then about like a teaspoon of half and half. I'm going to put our buttercream in a piping bag with a Wilton 1M chip. And then I'm going to put some jam in a piping bag. This is just strawberry jam. The cakes are fresh out of the oven, so we are going to plop them onto a cooling rack and let them cool completely. You know what? It'll work. There's nothing a little icing can fix. We're going to let these cool completely. The cakes have cooled, so it's time to decorate, and we all know this is where I thrive. I'm just going to hide. Here is our completed little Vicky sponge. It is storming outside. My dogs are hiding between my legs. So let's try it. Is she a little lopsided? Absolutely. That's none of our business though. It's good. Bread tastes more like a buttered biscuit, a honey biscuit sort of thing. But it's cake. I love cake. I'm going to give it a 8 out of 10. So quickly, let's do race predictions. Last week in Austria ruined my day, okay? I support drivers' right and wrongs, and my driver was in the right, okay? Luckily, Norris and Verstappen seem to have put it behind them. Well, I'm Team McLaren. So this weekend, it is looking like McLaren is really strong, especially in free practice 1 and 2 because it is Friday when this is being filmed. I'm going to go out and say it. We're going to get a Norris win in Silverstone, and I want Oscar to be 2. So I want a McLaren 1-2. Don't care who else is on the podium. That's all I know. That is the prediction I'm giving. But since it is Silverstone, let's throw out Lewis Hamilton. It's also his home race. George was on the podium. Well, George won last week. And then Alex, yes, he is British. I just don't know Nat Williams unless something happens. It is forecasted for rain, so we never know what happens. All right, I'll see you guys in a couple weeks for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Bye. It's race week, this week in Belgium. So let's make a dessert inspired by this week's hosting country. We're making the classic Belgian waffles Brussels style, mainly because I want waffles for dinner and I'm sick. So we're just doing something nice and quick. We're gonna add 3 cups of whole milk to our mixer. It is warm. And we're going to do 2 1/4 teaspoons of active dry yeast, along with 2 tablespoons of granulated white sugar. Once it's well incorporated, we're going to set her aside to develop for 10 minutes. Our batter has rested We're going to add 3 egg yolks, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, a stick of melted butter into this, and mix it until it's incorporated. To this, we're going to add 3 cups of flour and a pinch of salt slowly until it's well incorporated. This has mixed until it's smooth. We're going to set this bowl aside. Now we're going to take our 3 eggs whites in a new bowl and mix until stiff peaks. There we go. Now we're going to take the egg whites and fold them into our other batter. So in news of this week, Ocon signed to Haas for the 2025 season. I'm glad he found a place that he feels comfortable with, because I don't know what's going on at Alpine. They need to figure something out. The only person they're going to have left is Gasly on that team. Everyone's leaving. The principal's leaving. Everyone. Whatever curse Piastri put on that team, I need to know what kind of magic he does. It is all incorporated. I'm going to cover with foil, and then this is going to go into my oven that is at 170, the lowest setting it can, to proof for an hour. It says keep it in a warm place. I may live in Texas, but I don't think this is warm enough, so which is going to go in the oven. Our dough has proofed for an hour. So now we're going to make waffles in this itty-bitty waffle maker. We're just going to spray 1.5 of these babies. That seems right. Let's see how this goes. She may be undercooked. We'll keep going. I'll be back when these are all done. The waffles are done. It took a year off my life. I prepped mine with some butter, blueberries, maple syrup from Canada, actually, that I bought in Boston, and powdered sugar like it said to. It's good. It's a waffle. Do I think I'm going to do this again? No. But it has kind of like a sourdough kind of taste to it. I like it. I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Quickly, let's do some predictions. I want Charles to win, mainly because he has been having a messed up couple weeks at Ferrari. Also, we got the news that, what's the guy with the glasses? What's his name? Bonito? I don't know. That guy's coming back to become Audi's team principal, and I know that is what Charles' nightmares are made of. So I just want him to win. That's it. All right. I'll see you in a couple weeks after the summer break. Bye. It's race week this week in Zandvoort, so let's make a dessert inspired by the hosting country. As you can guess, we're making stroop waffles. We're going to start with 4.5 cups of flour, 1.25 cups of just plain granulated sugar. Welcome back from summer break. It didn't really silly season as I wish it would. 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of cinnamon, and Dutch people, I can get behind this. I love cinnamon. Does anyone remember the cinnamon challenge? 4.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast, followed by 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, 1/2 cup of lukewarm milk, 1 egg, and finally 1 cup of pretty much melted butter. We're just going to knead this till smooth and it resembles cookie dough. Okay, that came together pretty quickly. So now we're going to cover with plastic wrap and let it rise for 45 minutes and rest while we work on our caramel sauce. Starting with 6 tablespoons of butter, 1 cup of brown sugar, and 2 tablespoons of water. We're just going to stir this until it's incorporated. So, summer season, we got a couple announcements. Carlos to Williams, Ollie to Haas. Now we're just waiting for Kimi to Mercedes, and I'm waiting for Lawson to VCAR. But this week, we got Jack Doohan to Alpine. Once this has melted, we're going to bring it to a boil. This came to a boil pretty quickly, I would say. For this, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. I'm going to do 1/2 teaspoon of salt instead of just a dash because my butter was unsalted. 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Okay, so I was actually supposed to add the corn syrup in already. So we're going to do that now, and then once it thickens up, we'll cut the heat. Do 1/4 of light corn syrup. Pretty much thickened up, so I'm going to cut the heat. Our dough has risen. Now we're going to dump it out and knead her first. According to this recipe, we are going to break it into tennis ball shapes. It says if this is too big, we can make them smaller. My favorite part of F1 season being back is Haas not having paid their debts. That they had to seize the cars, like they couldn't leave Netherlands after the race. Luckily, they have paid their debts and they will be at Monza, but that is the funniest thing I've heard in a long time. Here are our balls. I made 12 very inconsistent balls, and I've had my waffle cone maker heating up. Welcome to this new angle. This is a very bad angle, but the cord on this is really short. Taking a ball. Now, we're going to need a circle cutter. This is the only circle cutter I have. So if this doesn't work, the edges are going to be a little wackadoo. When the steam no longer comes out, that is when our ball is ready. This is at a medium heat. While we are waiting, why don't we talk about Albon's disqualification? That's really sad. However, I am trying to see the positives and things and think Logan starting P19, he won't be last. Okay, this is definitely raw right here. Okay, I think these may be too thick. We have a waffle. Now we're gonna take a serrated knife, and this is hot, but we're just gonna slice through the center. And then our caramel, it did solidify, so I just warmed it for a second longer. Like that, I think. I'm gonna be back when all these bad boys are done because I'm making a mess and the dogs want to eat everything. Our stroop waffles are done, so let's try them. Wow. Oh, wow. That is really good. I'm gonna have to give that a 10 out of 10. That is so good. The Dutch people, you know what you're doing. It's amazing. Finally, let's talk predictions really quick. McLaren is 1-2 on pole. I need Norris to win. That's it. I know it's Max's home Grand Prix, but McLaren 1-2. That's all I want. I feel like that's going to be better after the talk before the break. Hamilton had a penalty, so I hope he can get into points at the very least. That's pretty much it. I'll see you next week for Monza. Bye. It's race week this week in Monza. So let's make a dessert inspired by this week's hosting country. We are making cannoli, which is our second Italian GP, so it's our second Italian dessert. Starting with our mixer. So I don't have a food processor, I have a mixer. Apparently I can do it this way. We're gonna start with 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons of granulated sugar, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And we're just gonna pulse this, mix this till it's combined. Next, we're going to cut in 2 tablespoons of cold butter and mix this till it creates like a crumbly dough. To this, we're going to add 1 egg yolk, a teaspoon of white vinegar. Wow, that's strong. And a 1/3 cup of Marsala wine. And I should say I am over 21. So drink responsibly. Mix together. That is well mixed. We're going to switch from the paddle attachment to a dough hook attachment. You could do this on a surface. I don't want to. And I'm going to beat this till a dough form. Our dough is together, so now we're going to let it rest for 30 minutes. While we're waiting for that, we're going to take 16 ounces of ricotta cheese and press it, get all the liquid out. To this, we're going to add 1 teaspoon of vanilla and a 1/4 of a teaspoon of cinnamon. So this is only half our filling, but Walmart ran out of heavy cream, and I did not realize it till right now that it was not part of my order. So we're going to have to do this in 2 parts because it is 11 p.m. right now. Nothing is open, which means I will be doing this after the race results. So I will quickly just say what I think will happen, even though when I finish this tomorrow morning, the race will be over. I'm hoping for a Norris win. I think this is really McLaren's time to shine. I would love a Ferrari one because it is Monza, but Charles getting that tractor up there last week for a podium, no one saw that coming. So I want a McLaren 1-2. I think we really have it finally. I think we honestly have a chance, at the very least, winning the Constructor Championship because I don't know where Perez is, but the McTwins at McLaren, they're showing up each week and I love being a fan. We're going to start by greasing our cannoli tube. That way they don't stick. We're going to take our dough and roll her as thin as I can. Take our cannoli cutter, circles, and take that circle and wrap it around our mold using the part that leftover egg to seal it. And we're going to repeat this with all of them. Then we're going to fry. These shouldn't take long, like 3 minutes. No one is surprised that Kimi was announced as the Mercedes second seat. What I've been saying, and we knew it was coming, we just didn't think it'd be now. Sargent is out. As an American, that is hard. I've never been like a Williams fan. I'm a fan of their drivers. I can't understand why it couldn't have happened during summer break and why they are putting someone in the seat who will have no chance of getting a seat next season. So possibly he could never have a seat in F1 because of this. I think Williams just needs to reevaluate a lot of things. And I worry for Albon in a way because the way that James Vowles talks about Carlos, I think he might be in love with him. And Albon is like right now Williams' golden child, but Carlos might become that. So I'm just going to move these to a lined cooling rack with paper towels so they can drain. And to complete the rest, I'll see you mañana to finish these when I have my heavy whipping cream. Welcome back. Let's make the rest of our filling. So we're going to do 1/2 a cup of heavy whipping cream, and we're just going to whip this till stiff peaks have formed. We have really stiff peaks. So now we're going to do 1/2 a cup of powdered sugar and incorporate this well. It is after the race. I know the results. We'll talk about it. So we just have a basic whipped cream now that we are going to spoon. I'm very happy for Charles. Anyone was going to win besides the McQuins at McLaren. I'm glad it was Charles. I feel though can be summed up by Will Buxton's post-race thought. It's like a 3-minute clip. Find it on YouTube. At the end of the day, this could be our only chance to win the championship for a long time before other teams start making progress on their car. So I don't think it's time to let's play fair. And we're just going to put our filling in a piping bag. I'm using a refillable one fitted with just a circle tip. I think it's a 1A from Wilton. I'm not doing this very gracefully. Now we have our cannoli shells and we're just going to half and then half. And I have chocolate chip and pistachios. I'm just gonna dip our cannolis in. So it looks like that. Let's do one of just chocolate chips. So we're just going halfway through. And I will tell you, these are pretty thick. I couldn't get them thinned out, if I'm being honest. I was fighting for my life. Our cannolis are all stuffed. That sounded wrong. I'm gonna use just a little bit of powdered sugar on top to make them pretty. It's time to try. I'm gonna go with this one. It's pretty good. I will say they are pretty thick. That's on me. I couldn't really roll them really thin. I felt like I needed a pastry sheeter. It's no Mike's Pastry in the North End in Boston, okay? Those are the best cannolis. But overall, I think for my first time, there is a lot of room for improvement, but it's pretty good. I'm gonna give them a 7 out of 10. We already did predictions, so we already know the result. I'll see you in a couple weeks for Baku. Bye. It's race week this week in Baku. So let's make a dessert inspired by our hosting country while I feel like shit after having eye surgery. We are making kobaye. I hope I'm saying that right. It basically means cookie. This recipe is simple because, y'all, I'm recovering from eye surgery. We're lucky I even put makeup on. We're gonna do 4 tablespoons of powdered sugar, 7 tablespoons, which is about 100 grams of butter, and we're gonna cream these two together. To this, we're gonna add 1 egg white and mix this together. We're gonna add 1.5 cups of flour, which is around 180 grams. I totally lost my measuring scale. I have no idea where it is. And also we're gonna do about a teaspoon of vanilla, and that is actually all the vanilla I have left. Give this one good mix till a dough forms. A dough has formed. I ran out of 18-inch piping bags and I literally did not realize it till right now. So we're using a 12-inch. Baku is an interesting race to me, mostly because people are gonna crash. Oscar's starting in the front as papaya fan. What are papaya rolls? I have a lined cooking sheet. Ignore my struggle here. Okay, let's see if this works better. No, it's not gonna work. For the life of me, I cannot get the dough through a piping bag. So I just roll them into little balls and then press them down. They are supposed to look like flowers, but we don't have time to troubleshoot. We're just gonna add a little jam to the center of these. These remind me of like thumbprint cookies here in the States. This is strawberry jam that I am using. And I did realize that there is literally no baking soda or anything in these to make them rise. So we'll see how this goes because this recipe was translated. So these are gonna go into the oven at 395, which is around 200 Celsius for 20 minutes. Our cookies, they're cool. They look like a fail, but let's try them. They taste like a butter biscuit with jam, which is essentially what they are. I'm gonna consider this totally a fail. I'm gonna give them a 5 out of 10. It has nothing to do with the dessert. It has everything to do with my piping bag wasn't working. I think I could have researched a recipe better, but I think we've made it 17 rounds into this series and we haven't had this much of a fail yet, so that's good. I just need to find a recipe that was better. Let's talk our predictions real quick. These people, they're not making it past the first quarter. They are going to run into each other and it's going to be very entertaining. Norris is P17. We all saw that yellow flag, but I'm not going to get into it. But I am expecting crashes. I do want a Ferrari 1-2. I think it'd be good for Carlos and his morale, but also I think Charles is the king of Baku, especially with the I am stupid. That is like his thing. I think he deserves that. You know, if anyone can put that tractor up there, it is that guy. But yeah, I'll see you next week for my favorite Grand Prix, Singapore. Bye. It's race week. This week in everyone's favorite place, Singapore. Is it our first night race? I'm trying to remember. So let's make a dessert inspired by our hosting country this week. We are making mango pudding. Now, from my research, it seems like China and Singapore share this dessert. So there's that. I'm going to start with a 1/4 cup of water and gelatin. I am actually technically allergic to gelatin because I am allergic to pork severely, but I guess we're gonna YOLO it. So 1 tablespoon of gelatin, which is like 1 packet, into the cold water. Good mix and set her aside. Next, to our blender, we're gonna do 3 cups of mango. So I pre-chopped all mine, and some of them are not the ripest because it is not mango season. So like, stay with me here. Also, there are bats on my cabinet.
It's freaking bats. I love Halloween.
We're gonna add 2 tablespoons of sugar. I'm gonna add about a tablespoon of honey just because my mangoes aren't the ripest, so they're not the sweetest. Then we're gonna do 1 cup of evaporated milk. No, this is coconut milk. 1 cup of coconut milk. Now, I know this is tacky, but I have no idea where the lid to this thing is, so we're gonna have to use a plate. And we're just gonna blend till it's pureed. Our gelatin is this. So now we're going to nuke it in the microwave for 10-second interval until the gelatin has dissolved. Our gelatin is liquid. We're gonna add it into the blender. Oh, that smells horrible. And we're just gonna blend. I don't have any pretty like glass serveware, so we're just going to use these glass bowls and pour both in. Can I just say, last week's race was thrilling. K-Mag, he did it all, but free my man. K-Mag, I support his rights and his wrong. We're going to tap to get all the air bubbles out. Okay, I can't believe we got Franco and Ollie points. It was a good race. I think it's like the race of the season. We got a overtaking masterclass by Norris. These are gonna go in the fridge for 2 hours till they're set. Our puddings have set, so we're just gonna top them with the remaining of our coconut milk. Sure, that looks right. And our mangoes. Sure, why not? Try it. Wow, it's refreshing. I don't know if it'd be appropriate if I ate this whole thing on my own. This might be my dinner. This is a 9 out of 10. So let's talk prediction. It's actually Friday, so I've only seen FP1 and 2, so I have no idea where anyone has qualified. I will say giving the multi-millionaire Max Verstappen community service for saying the F word, really funny. I do not care about my team's rear wing being illegal. It was providing entertaining racing. God. The rumor on the street right now is that this is Ricardo's last race, which is kind of dirty because he loves Coda. But if he's being dropped for Lawson, I'm all for it. I need Lawson on that grid. But predictions. I have no idea where this can go. Red Bull is saying they don't even think they can make it into Q3. I'm going to say I would like a repeat of Carlando 1-2 last year. What I will say is I can see K-Mag trying to take everyone out just because he has 7 races left and a clean rap sheet. Yeah, I would like a Carlando 1-2. Lewis also said he doesn't know if they will make it into Q3. George just always waiting for other people to crash to make it onto the podium is pretty iconic. So if that were to happen again, I would like it. I can't really give much prediction though because I haven't seen qualifying. I will see you in a couple weeks when we are in my home state at one of the best races of the year, Coda. Bye! Race week this week in Austin. So it is time to make a dessert inspired by our hosting country and in this case, hosting state. And also I did buy new merch for the second half of the season. Second half, the last leg of the season. Anyways, I'm from Texas, born and raised here, and I really had to debate what dessert is very Texas. And there's a couple I had, but I think nothing is more quintessential than an apple pie. But not just any apple pie. That's not how we do it down here. An apple pie made in a skillet. So that's what we're doing today. Here is our skillet. We're gonna start by making our caramel that goes at the bottom of the apple pie. Half a stick of butter. Going to melt that down. It's Liam Lawson's first race. He did pretty good so far from what I've seen in the sprint and qualies. Did get in some beef with Fernando Alonso, which it's always really funny. It's like a rite of passage. Now, I don't know why McLaren brought so many updates. Luckily, we cinched pole, but now is not the time. Not in time when you only have 1 hour of practice. Next week, Mexico would have been great. Our butter is pretty much melted, so we're gonna add a cup of packed brown sugar. We're just gonna mix this till the sugar dissolves. 1 to 2 minutes, create our caramel. Okay, it's nice and frothy, so we're gonna cut the heat completely and then just let this rest while we work on our filling. So I have 2 pounds of Gala apples and 2 pounds of Granny Smith apples, peeled, cored, and cut into 1/2-inch wedges. To that, we're gonna add 1/2 cup of granulated sugar and anywhere from a teaspoon to a tablespoon of cinnamon. I went on the heavier route. Just give that. We have our skillet. We're gonna use pre-made pie crust. Nobody has time to make pie crust in this day and age. Okay, there we go. Put it at the bottom of this. Top with our apples. Other part of our pie crust, the other half on top. My skillet's a little big, doesn't reach. That's we're gonna cut 4 slits for the pie to breathe like that. This is still hot, so be careful. And then I just have some egg white wash here. We're gonna brush with. And we're also gonna finish with just some more white sugar. Now this bad boy is gonna go into the oven for 1 hour to 1 hour and 10 minutes at 350. On the rack below your pie, you're gonna wanna put just a baking sheet because the juices might bubble over. And be very careful, it's a skillet, it's hot. Our pie is done. I'm not gonna lie, it's the next day because it is now cooled. I realized I didn't have ice cream and the only way to eat apple pie the Texas way. So we're just gonna cut a slice, kind of small. We're just gonna do a small scoop of vanilla ice cream, whipped cream, and caramel. And that is how you eat an American pie. So a little ice cream, a little bit of the pie. She likes it. That is Southern comfort. This, I have to give it like 10 out of 10. This is childhood right here. This is the South right here. Real quick, let's do race predictions. It starts in 30 minutes, so this is gonna go up after. Sorry. Let's see. I need Norris to win. I have this thing where I think he's gonna win all 3 Grand Prix in the US, and he's starting on pole. That's really all. I'll see you next week for Mexico. Bye. It's race week this week in Mexico. Y'all, I'm gonna have to take this jacket off. I'm sorry. But look at this windbreaker. So it is time to make a dessert inspired by our hosting country, which I'm gonna consider another one of my home races because I'm half Mexican. We are making one of my all-time favorite Mexican desserts, conchas, which are a type of pan dulce, which basically is a sweet bread. We're gonna start with 500 grams of all-purpose flour, 7.5 grams of active dry yeast, instant, 125 grams of white sugar, 3 grams of salt, and we're gonna give this a good mix using our bread hook. Adding 100 grams of unsalted butter, and we're now going to add 100 grams of eggs and a teaspoon of vanilla. Mix that. So it's pretty crumbly. Slowly we're going to add 100 milliliters of warm milk and then knead this for 7 minutes in total. It's been 7 minutes. It is elastic-y. It's separated from the sides of the bowl, but if it doesn't, use just a little more flour. I'm going to put a little flour on my counter. Make sure all the dough, and we're just going to knead this for a minute.
This is when my mic died, but it's only going to last for a couple seconds. So we're going to place our dough in a greased bowl, cover it with plastic wrap and a warm towel, and then set that in a warm area to proof for 2 hours. While that is going, we're going to make our topping. So 100 grams of veggie shortening. You're going to mix it until it's fluffy. To that, add 100 grams of powdered sugar. Mix that. And then finally, you're going to add 120 grams of all-purpose flour and a teaspoon of cinnamon. It's optional to dye your top of your conchas, but I decided to do the Mexico flag colors, so I'm dyeing a third green and a third red, giving that a good mix, and then setting aside.
Our dough has risen, and then I've just let it lay here on the counter for 5 minutes floured. We're going to split this into 16 balls. I'm sorry about the audio. I did not realize my mic died. And I went on a whole spiel about my predictions for the race. We're going to roll them into balls. I have 2 of our sheet pans like this. We're just going to brush the top with shortening to get them sticky for their topping. And the pan is also greased with shortening. We're going to use the good old tortilla press to make our topping. A little bit of the dough, and your hands need to be greased. I learned that the hard way. Press down like a tortilla. Pull one side. We're going to flip it here. Pull the plastic back, and both sides of your plastic need to be greased because you're going to get fight back like this. Here they are. Well, here's the other sheet. I did try to make the Mexico flag, and looking at it now, it looks like the Italy flag. You can use a cookie cutter or a paring knife, but you're just going to want to make a shell shape on the top. I'm going to pop these back into the oven, covered for an hour to proof. Again, our cultures have doubled in size, and I'm whispering because it's 2 a.m. But these are going to go in the oven for 20 minutes. Since I have 2 sheets of these, I'm going to swap them. Like the bottom one will go to the top, and the top will go to the bottom halfway through at 10 minutes. Also, they're baking at 320. Our cochas are done. And normally I would let them rest because it is a hot dessert, but I want to go to sleep. It is 2:30 a.m. So it's already race day when I'm filming this. So we're going to try them hot, even though you technically shouldn't. I'm going to go with the one that I tried to make look like Mexico, but it is giving Italian flag. I'm using a napkin because it's hot, but quickly let me Photoshop the eagle so it looks like the Mexico flag. My people know how to make a dessert. 10 out of 10. Next time when I see the bakers at my local dulceria, I'm giving them their 10s because these were not easy to make. Quickly, let's talk race predictions. So, this got cut out when my mic decided to die. But basically, I don't necessarily know who's going to win, but I do have a theory of what's going to happen. And let me explain. Starting 4 is Sainz, Verstappen, Norris, Leclerc. Leclerc does not care. That man, he loves a good fight, especially with Max. And he won last race by letting Max and Lando fight. I wouldn't put it past him to let them 2 fight and then try to get through. And in that, some sort of crash off track thing happens in turn 1. Anyways, so that's going to happen. And if I think it comes down between a streamlining Lando or Charles, it's Carlos. I'm going to pick Carlando. I also want Carlo Pinto points. I know it's going to be a messy race because all practices and quali were messy. That's all I have for you. I'll see you next week for Brazil. Bye. It's Thursday this week in Brazil, so let's make a traditional dessert inspired by our hosting country. We are making brigadeiro. I hope I'm saying that right, but from what I can gather, it's like a fudge ball thing. To a saucepan, we're going to add 1 can of sweetened condensed milk, half a cup of chocolate drink powder, so like Nesquik is what I mean, and 1 tablespoon of softened butter. And we're just going to mix this for 10 minutes until it is thoroughly combined and heated. I'm filming this on the 27th right after the Mexico GP because I'm going to be out of town this week. So I wanted to start done early, so I have no idea where 81 is placed right now. But I thought this would be a great time to talk about the ongoing driver lineup, specifically how after seeing multiple reserve drivers drive in FP1 during Mexico, we really can get a look into the amount of talent that will never have a chance in Formula One. There's a bunch of them, but especially when you have reserve drivers, backup drivers, and people who are being swapped out mid-season, like Lawson. We don't even know if he's going to be on the grid next season, and there's a big possibility he won't. But also people like Franco Colapinto, who realistically there is no seat for him until 2026, 27. By the time it's 27, I will have a master's degree. Okay, by the end of next year, I will be done with my bachelor's degree. So that really puts a lot in perspective. And it sucks to bring such amazing young talent like that in and then just disregard them at the end of the season. It smells like hot chocolate, especially when he has become so beloved by a lot of people. My favorite part was him telling people not to buy the official Williams merch because it's expensive. And you know what? I own like 3 Williams pieces. It is expensive. You're going to want to just scrape the bottom constantly to make sure it doesn't burn, and the side. And then to put in perspective, you have people like Checo, who I understand Mexico is the first or second largest F1 audience in the world. So I understand why having a Mexican driver on the grid is important. But you have young talent like Pato O'Ward, who, yes, he's a McLaren driver and he's doing great in IndyCar, but he probably will never see Formula One. And I know they don't want to get rid of Checo because he brings in so much money for Mexico. I think he brings in the most money in sponsorships, is what I saw. I think he actually makes the most money off of merch, something like that. And they don't want to lose that audience, but instead of, I don't want to call him washed up, but instead of trying to expand that audience to a younger generation by bringing in a newer, younger Mexican driver, they just don't. So you have him qualifying and placing at the bottom of the grid when he is in one of the top cars. Why not give that seat? I'm not saying to give that seat to like someone like Pato O'Ward, but you see what I mean. We can't keep giving these people who have not really proven that they can be in such a great car and deliver so many chances just because the money that will back them. Why don't you instead look for drivers who will bring that money? Because that is getting that younger audience. If you bring someone who is a great Mexican driver at a young age, now you have this new fandom, I'm 22, who will be with that driver till the end of their career. Because I'm 22, I don't want to follow Checo, even though I am half Mexican. Why should I care? Okay, it thickened, so I put it in this container and it's gonna chill for 2 hours till it really like thickens more and comes to room temp, basically, before we roll the balls. It most definitely is 2 days later. Anyways, it's cool to like a fudge texture. We have some chocolate non-peril sprinkles, some butter. So we're just gonna grease our hands, soften butter, grab a tablespoon or so, give it a mix in your hand, and then roll in like that. Well, they flatten, but let's try them. It's really good. It tastes like a hot chocolate fudge, but with like a softened Tootsie Roll texture. I really like it. Quickly, let's talk prediction. I have no prediction because it is Tuesday, but you can look at my nails and guess where I'm going. That's where my mind is right now. The only thing I can say is I hope Lewis places well because this is his home race and he deserves that. Also, I hope Mac really considers his actions after that 20-second penalty because they finally got his ass. If Norris doesn't do good this weekend, I fear the championship is gone for McLaren for WDC. But we are now in the fight with Ferrari, so either Ferrari or McLaren wins, I'll be happy for the Constructor Championship. But yeah, that's all I have. I'll see you in a couple weeks for Vegas. Bye. It's race week this week in Vegas. So we are back on American soil. So let's make a dessert inspired by our hosting country. Today we are making what I think is a classic American dessert, New York style cheesecake. Now you're like, it's Vegas, not New York. Vegas has a mini Statue of Liberty, which I thought would be perfect for this. Also, peep the Snoopy sweatpants because apparently I can't buy the Snoopy merch online. We're gonna start with our graham cracker crust. So I have half a cup of unsalted butter melted, a third of a cup of granulated sugar, half a teaspoon of cinnamon, and now 2 cups of graham cracker crumbs. We're just gonna mix this together. So I'm not gonna lie, I have major FOMO that everyone who makes F1 content is at the race. I really did try to go. However, I just couldn't swing it. Next year for sure I'll go because they already sent me an email to put my deposit down for a ticket. I plan to try to go to 2 races next year. So for sure Vegas. But should I go to Montreal, Miami, or Austin? I am from Texas and Austin is the weekend of my birthday. So we have a 9-inch cheesecake pan. I've greased the bottom and the sides, and then I've lined the sides with parchment, holding it together with metal binder clips. So we're just gonna press this. Our crust is pressed. So this is gonna go into the oven for 10 minutes at 350. In a small bowl, I have 4 eggs plus 1 egg yolk. We're gonna add 2 teaspoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice to this, along with 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. Just gonna whisk this up. To the stand mixer, we're gonna add 4 blocks, so 32 ounces of room temp cream cheese. With a paddle attachment, we're gonna whip this for about 30 seconds. It is smooth, so to this we're gonna add 1.5 cups of granulated sugar, along with 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. Mix. Now we're gonna add our egg in 4 and then mix on low for about 30 seconds each time. It's all incorporated. It took about 5 minutes. Be very low and slow with that process. Now to this, we're gonna add 1 cup of sour cream, room temp, okay? Your egg, your cream cheese, your sour cream, all needs to be room temp. And we're gonna fold this in. We have our crust here. We're just gonna add our filling. And we're gonna tap her against the counter to get air bubbles out. This is gonna bake at 305 for an hour and 40 minutes. In total, that is 100 minutes. I can do math, you're welcome. Once the 100 minutes are over, you're gonna turn off the oven, crack the oven door open so all the hot air escape, and leave the cheesecake in there for an hour. After that hour, take it out, and you're gonna pop it in the fridge overnight for 8 hours. So technically, we will be trying this tomorrow on race day. This is gonna go on the top shelf in your oven. Underneath that, you're gonna put a pan. This is just disposable. If you're American, the ones you use for Thanksgiving turkey. And you're gonna fill it with hot boiling water. I've had hot boiling water go since we started this process. That way the water can create a steam bath for your cheesecake. Pan with water. You can see it steaming up. Cheesecake, that's how you're gonna cook it. It's race day. The cheesecake has set. It did crack a little, but let's release her from the pan. Oh no, she's not the prettiest thing I've ever seen. Let's cut into her. Okay, here she is. It looks really creamy. That is so good. I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10 because the crust is pretty thin, which is totally on me. I was having real trouble making the crust, but the filling is so good. You could also use maybe a little more vanilla, in my opinion. I don't have any whipped cream, and I didn't make any sort of like raspberry puree to go on top. I wanted authentic, just plain cheesecake. Let's talk race predictions. So I would love if the podium is exactly how it is right now. Say hi to Chaos. I'm sorry, a Gasly win again? Wild. I would love that. I would also love Sainz to win again. His last couple races with Ferrari. In an ideal world, as a McLaren fan, Lando will finish in front of Max. But, you know, Max, he's the little FIA golden boy. Probably is going to win his championship. If he doesn't win the race, I hope they celebrate later with the championship because let's give someone else time to celebrate on the podium, who will probably be Russell Sainz or Gas. But yeah, that's all I have. I'll see you next week for the second to last race in Qatar. Bye! It's race weekend this week in Qatar, so let's make a dessert inspired by our hosting country. We're making basbousa. I hope I'm saying that right. That's what Google said. We're going to start with 1 cup of plain yogurt. Now, this recipe did not specify a lot of like details on certain things, so I am guessing. To this, we're going to add 1 cup of sugar, half a teaspoon of baking soda, 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder, and give this a good mix. So the live cultures in the yogurt did cause start bubbling. And I'm not going to lie, I forgot that Thanksgiving and race week were the same week, so I had to run out and grab all these ingredients this morning. Oh yeah, it is bubbling. I'm going to set this aside. In a 9x13 baking casserole dish, we are going to put about 2 tablespoons of tahini on the bottom. Let me tell you, it took me 20 minutes to find that. And this is going to be like greasing our dish instead of like using butter. In another bowl, we're going to add 3 cups of semolina flour. Finding this was not easy. 1, 2. To this, I'm going to add 1 stick of melted butter and mix together. So obviously the championship was won in Vegas. I think we all saw that coming. I said it. But I do think McLaren is going to win the WCC because Ferrari, the girls are fighting. They rather take each other out. So the recipe calls for coconut flakes. So this is coconut flour. Apparently it is equivalent. If it's not, this is where I mess up. So a cup of this. And since it's a cake, I have to think it's like using 2 types of flour. We're going to add our yogurt that has like bubbled up in here. We also are going to add 3/4 cup of milk. We're just going to put it in our prep dish. Hopefully it's supposed to be this crumbly, and I'm gonna push down on it. So we're gonna score our dessert. On each square, we're gonna put a whole almond. We're down to the last 2 races. We still have an empty seat. I don't know if Colapinto will be signed. According to Gunther Steinen, he was signed for another team. Could that be Red Bull? Because Lawson is causing drama on the grid. I think the sprint with Norris and Oscar swapping position just shows how much of a good bond they have. You know, because the whole season they've been trying to pin them against each other. I know that works at Ferrari, but not necessarily McLaren. Those 2, I think, will rather kill each other than let the other one win willingly. I hope I did that right. Now this is going to go into the oven to bake for 30 minutes on the bottom rack and then for 10 more minutes on the top rack. Welcome to my stove. We're going to make a quick, simple syrup with 2 cups sugar and 1.5 cups of water. I'm going to simmer this for 8 minutes till the sugar dissolves. Okay, our syrup is like thickening. So before we cut the heat, we're going to add half the juice of a lemon. Our cake is out of the oven. We're going to reinforce the score lines we made and just top with the syrup. Ooh, sizzly. Oh no, my almonds are falling apart. It's been an hour. It's pretty good. It tastes kind of like cornbread with like a coconut flavor, but also a little sweet. I'm gonna give it a 5.5 out of 10. It's just a little dry for me, and that's probably my fault. So let's talk about race predictions. Verstappen got a 1-place grid penalty due to impeding, so he's starting P2. That means nothing because the McLaren is still 3 and 4. So I don't know what's going on with Russell. That man, he knows how to drive. So if he can hold off Verstappen like he did in, was it Canada? Vegas? 1 and 2. He is going to win, but he needs to get that 20-second lead. McLaren, hopefully we can finish P2 or P3. The strategy has been pretty good. We've been pretty fast. That's all I've got. But I'll see you next week for the final race of the season in Abu Dhabi. Bye. It's race week this week in Abu Dhabi, the last race of the 2024 season. So let's make a dessert inspired by our hosting country. We are making bati. It's basically a dessert using dates. And something about me, I love dates. We are going to start by making our date paste. If you can buy this pre-made, do that. So we're going to take 250 grams of pitted date. These have no pit in them, along with 1/4 of a cup of water. And we're just going to smash our date and make like a paste. We have reached like a paste texture. We're going to move that off the heat, bring in a skillet. And to this, we're going to add 1/4 of wheat flour. And we're going to toast this constantly till it gets a nutty flavor on low heat. So it's starting to smoke. I'm going to cut the heat, add the dates into this, and I'm just going to incorporate this till it is unified. It should take about 3 minutes. We got this weird mixture. So now we're going to add 1/4 of a teaspoon of ginger and 1/4 of a teaspoon of cardamom and incorporate that. So let's talk about last week. I think we all can agree that the FIA's punishment, penalties, whatever you want to say, are too harsh. A grid penalty for Max, 10-second stop and go for Norris is ridiculous. There is no reason for any of that. Penalties need to be unanimous, especially when there was a freaking mirror on the track for 2 laps that could have injured someone. It's becoming more and more obvious that the FIA sees the drivers as disposable. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of melted butter. Give this a good mix. And then I'm just going to let this cool down until I can touch it. Our paste, I can touch and handle it. I have pistachios that are crushed, sesame seeds, and coconut. So we're going to roll little balls, about a tablespoon, and roll it in one of our toppings. So it looks like this. Now you can make these as big or as small as you want. Alpine dropping Ocon for the last race was deplorable just because he wants to test with his new team for the next season. He is the only reason really that they are in P6. This is not sticking. Just let him finish one more race. It is disgusting behavior. Also, I have insomnia. So I saw when it was released like 10 minutes after, Max is going to be a biological papa. That is beautiful. I mean, he's already a stepdad. A lot of people are wondering if he's going to retire after tomorrow's race or if he is going to after next season. So let's try these. These are really good. I'm going to give them an 8 out of 10. They have this smoky flavor from the cardamom and toasting the wheat flour, but it's still sweet enough that it is a dessert, which is more like a savory dessert. Quickly, for the last race of the season, let's talk prediction. McLaren is going to win the WCC, especially with Ferrari's grid penalty. Nico Hülkenberg was given a 3-place grid penalty. So he's starting 7 instead of 4. I was going to say it would have been iconic if he won the race, because he could, but I guess not. My prediction is we're going to have a McLaren 1-2 to finish it off. I will say, because his family is there, Norris wins. Her name's Karma, by the way. That's all I got. I hope Hamilton has a good race. And honestly, I'm so excited for him to move to Ferrari next year because Ferrari's my second team. I will see you next season. But actually, I have the Hungarian dessert to catch up on. So I might see you next week. Bye.
I know you told your friend you're not okay. And tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way.